We have all kinds of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here tonight. All kinds of trade talk on UFA rumors as we get closer to the draft and free agency. Tonight's rumors focus on a lot of teams, including the Oilers, the Canucks, the Leafs, the Sabres, the Ducks, the Penguins, the Hurricanes, Islanders, Senators, Kraken, and the Panthers. That's a lot. Plus, we have a couple of signings today, including a big one in Dallas and in Ottawa. We have a trade earlier involving Mason Marchment. Some big comments from Edmonton Oilers captain Connor McDavid on his future. Kind of got a lot of people speculating and maybe looking too much into it, but we'll discuss what he had to say. Lots of UFA talk as well around some key free agents, including Sam Bennett, Nick Ehlers, some RFA guys like Dobson, Knies, and a whole lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have all kinds of stuff to talk about here tonight. It's going to be a jam-packed video here. Yet again, the silly season is officially upon us, and we've got all kinds of stuff. So definitely want to stay tuned and use the timestamps if you want to kind of go through. I'll link those as best I can so that you can kind of, get the pieces that you're most interested in. But let's start off with some big news items. We had some big signings today. The first one of the day came early with the Ottawa Senators announcing they've signed Fabian Zetterlund to a 3-year contract at $4.25 million. The pending restricted free agent was acquired by the Senators at the trade deadline from the San Jose Sharks, which is really a nice pickup for them. It was a trade that nobody kind of saw coming. They gave up a couple of pieces, including Noah Gregor and Zach Ostapchuk, which really wasn't a huge haul. They got him for a good price. It was believed that he was looking for somewhere around the $5 million mark from the Sharks, which is why they weren't crazy about giving him the next contract, so they ended up trading him. I know based on the projections from AFB Analytics and a few other contract places that I kind of rely on a lot of data on, this is pretty close to what they had for him. And I know a lot of the analytic people thought this is a pretty good bang-on contract. I know the production from Zetterlund after being acquired was not the greatest, but you got to remember Ottawa was already in a playoff push. They had their top two lines kind of already set, and he basically was filling in as a bottom six and occasionally getting top six time. I think going into next year, I would expect him to be more of a staple in the top six, so he should be able to get back to that 20 goal plus 40-50 point type of player that he can definitely be, maybe even more. I'm not sure he's hit his full ceiling yet. He's only 25, so good signing overall there. The Dallas Stars also got a very good team friendly deal with centerman Matt Duchene. Duchene signs a 4-year contract at $4.5 million per season. Now, why such a team friendly deal? Well, part of it, obviously, we do know and we'll acknowledge the no state tax, but I don't really think that's the big part of it. One, he really likes being a Dallas Star. Two, he's also getting paid from Nashville. Remember, he got a pretty significant buyout from not previous long-term deal he had with the Predators. He's still getting paid a pretty significant sum over the next 4 years as well from that contract. So he can pass that savings along to the Stars. I mean, did he have to do that? No. He could have easily gotten $6-7 million for sure in free agency. He made it clear that after a couple of 1-year deals, he needed term this time. He kind of wanted to settle his family and be in one place. Obviously, they enjoyed being there. And while this works out, Jim Nill's quite happy to sign him. He was a point-per-game player last year, 82 points for $4.5 million. The only thing you have to ask yourself is he going to duplicate that? Over the next 4 years, is he going to be an 80-point player all those years? The odds are probably against that. But, if he hits it at least one more time, and even if he can be a 50-point player for most of the rest of that contract, it's still a good number, especially with the cap going up. So you really can't beat that scenario. And then, of course, not long after the Duchene signing, earlier this evening, we saw them trade Mason Marchment. Of course, he spent a lot of time playing with Duchene. They had pretty good chemistry, but Marchment gets traded to the Seattle Kraken for a pair of draft picks, a 2026 third-rounder and a 2025 fourth-rounder. I did put out a video earlier on the channel discussing that trade. If you haven't caught it, you can get a little bit more of an in-depth analysis there. But for now, essentially, they gave Duchene Marchment's contract. So it's the same amount of money. So it's money in, money out. They're right back to having just shy of $5 million in cap space. They do want to sign Captain Jamie Benn for probably a short 1 or 2 year extension. And then they have some other things to do. They do also look to want to trade Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin by the looks of things as well, but that's going to be other moves that we see here in the coming days. But the Dallas Stars and Jim Nill getting down to business early. Like I said, that's the further speculation. I really don't think they're going to trade Jason Robertson if they can help it. I think they're going to try to move some other money around. So like Dumba, like Lyubushkin, unless they get a crazy offer for Robertson, or they have, because they're also expected to have some extension discussions with Robertson's camp, unless they get totally kind of shy of what he's looking for in the next deal and decide it's best. I really not confident we're going to see Robertson trade, but we'll see. I could be wrong on that. The Philadelphia Flyers today also hired Todd Reirden, a longtime NHL coach, mostly as an assistant, got a few years head coaching experience in Washington as well. He rounds out the new staff there for Rick Tocchet. He'll be the managing the D coach, of course. That's what he specializes in. Has been one of the better D coaches around the NHL for some time. So that's a good pickup by Philly on that front. And also, too, the Washington Capitals have given teams consent to speak to Ethan Bear. Ethan Bear, of course, one point was a pretty promising right shot defenseman. He's still not that old. He's still only 27. Of course, came up in the Oilers organization, bounced around a little bit. Has some injuries. I think he was off for a while for other things too, and but he's had a nice bounce back season. But the Capitals had him in the minors all year. He put up a 46-point campaign in the AHL because he's still 27. He shoots right. He's got decent size. He's like 5'11", 6 feet, around 200 pounds, like pretty sturdy guy. I have no doubt there's going to probably somebody give him a shot for next year. A lot of teams are looking for cheaper depth. He could be a great option for some teams. Like, I'm not sure you'd want to rely on him to be a top 4 guy, at least not yet. I think he might want to kind of prove himself a little bit more for getting a bigger role, but I can see him being a pretty decent third pair option or like a 6-7 option. And then if he can continue to play like he once was thought that he could be, then he could certainly work his way into a bigger role, I think. So watch his name as the coming days here as well, leading into free agency. Of course, we want to talk about Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. It was locker cleanout day for the Oilers today. And McDavid had some quotes that has kind of got the fan base. So I guess depending on who you ask, you're either going to get some concern, you're going to get confusion, you're going to get some people who think it's going to be an overreaction. Variety of thoughts and opinions out there. We also heard from a variety of other players like Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, Corey Perry, etc. And I guess the difference here is Leon's already signed a long-term extension just this past summer, so we know he's going to be an Oiler for a long time. Bouchard and Perry both made a lot of comments that, we want to be back. We love it here. Hopefully everything works out to get a new contract, all that. McDavid never said, I don't want to be here. He never said anything that was really negative, but he didn't explicitly come out and say when he was asked about his future that, I love Edmonton. I'm sure it's going to work out. I want to bring the cup home. To me, he was still kind of ticked off. And I think people are overreacting to this because you got to keep something in mind. Is that he just lost in the Stanley Cup final a couple days ago for the second year in a row. One of his quotes was that last year it was more like sadness. And you saw in the Amazon series, you could see him breaking down, crying in the locker room after the Game 7 loss. Like, it was heartbreak is what he said. This year, he said he feels more anger. Like, it's angry. And you could tell. And that's kind of what I was thinking is watching him in the last couple minutes on the bench as the clock was ticking down. It's like, Connor looks pissed. And rightfully so. I mean, you think about the work they put in to get all the way back and to lose again. It's frustrating. So, ultimately, does he want to leave? I don't really think so. I mean, he's pretty entrenched there in Edmonton. He and his wife obviously have a huge house, and she's got a lot of stuff on the go. I think that's the last thing on his mind. But here's some of the quotes. Like he said, winning is the most important thing. If I feel there's a good window here to win, then signing is no problem. I'm sure we'll get into it here over the next couple of weeks, but I'm not in a rush. So, of course, you know what? Remember, Leon said a lot of the same things. Leon was in no rush either. And you didn't get an extension on July 1, and nobody really panicked, right? He also said that the core's been together for a long time. We've been building to this moment. With that being said, ultimately, I still need to do what's best for me and my family. But yes, I do feel like there's unfinished business here in Edmonton. So he was asked about, do you feel like the unfinished business? And that was his response. And the part everybody's kind of focusing on is the part where he says, with that being said, ultimately, I got to do what's best for me. You've been in the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, but outside of joining the Florida Panthers, which we know isn't going to happen, where else could you go? I just don't think that's going to be the case. To me, I think I personally take his comments as that he is angry over the loss. I don't think he's completely processed everything here yet. Until we hear anything that McDavid wants to leave, I won't believe that it's something he wants. I also wonder too if this is kind of his way of getting not taking a shot, but kind of like making sure management, because I'm sure they listen to everything he says very closely. Let them know that we don't want to falter again. There's clearly some parts of the team that are not good enough, and we need to fix that. And we need to address certain things. And if you want me to stick around, and I want to stick around, then we need to do this. So to me, I think it's just I think he's ticked, he's angry, he hasn't fully processed everything yet, and has he really thought much about an extension? He's right. There is no rush. He's got another year in his contract. And just remember, Leon said a lot of the same things. So I just don't think the fan base should be overreacting. The amount of mock trades I saw today over McDavid was ridiculous. It's fun to talk about, but I just don't see it happening. I really don't. Should we be concerned about his future? Maybe a tiny little bit, but I think it's really early, really premature, and I think he's going to give Connor time and let the management team go to work. I suspect before he signs an extension this offseason, and I do think it likely will happen, is that he's going to want to see other moves done to make the team better first. Just kind of, prove to me that we're serious here about getting back and making sure we win next time. So that's my take on that. When it comes to the Oilers, one other thing I want to look at, there's been a lot of talk about the goaltending. We talked yesterday, there's some speculation about John Gibson maybe being a trade target if they're going to bring in a veteran guy. Apparently there was Gibson, if he is traded, he wants to be the guy, the starting guy apparently. So he may not be the perfect target to bring in if they're planning to keep Stuart Skinner. It sounds like he would probably prefer to be more in a starter backup type of scenario instead of more of a tandem, I guess. But really, I'm not sure how accurate that is, but there's some that believe that. But another goaltending target I've seen on Edmonton media, I think it was Tyler Yaremchuk actually talking about it, wondering, should the Oilers go after the Blues? The Blues targeted and took advantage of their situation last year, and now they've got an RFA themselves in goalie Joel Hofer. Would it make sense to go after Hofer with an offer sheet? It doesn't mean he's going to sign it, for one. They have about $5 million in space, and they don't have a lot of contracts to be done. So, you might have to, and really, I don't think the Oilers are in a predicament where they can really overpay too much. But it could put them in a situation where they, the match, they'd be right up against the cap. If you get them maybe just shy of $5 million, one of the lower brackets where you only have to give up like a second rounder or something like that. Kind of the same scenario that they did with Broberg. What do you think of that idea? Because I know it's something to look at. It's revenge on the offer sheets, I think, is a real thing. Obviously, we've seen it happen before. Hofer's a good young goalie. I don't know, though. As much as it might be interesting to have a young goalie tandem, you keep Skinner around, you bring in Hofer. Yeah, okay. They're younger goalies. They have potential. Hofer's got some, but he doesn't have any playoff experience. You don't know how he's going to do in the playoffs. I don't think you can really take a chance that your goaltending to be upgraded is going to be guesswork here. I think you need somebody with some more serious experience. Now, I know earlier in the season, they apparently did have legit, serious conversations with the Bruins over Jeremy Swayman. Now, they didn't go too far with those, but they did make serious inquiries. I'm not sure if they got to the point where an offer was on the table or what have you, but they were seriously inquiring when the Bruins was when their season was kind of starting to tumble down, they were falling apart, and they're starting to sell things off. They're like, geez, maybe we can get him. And obviously they didn't, but could they revisit that? I don't know what they do, but goaltending is going to be a huge part, I think, of them trying to make their team better for sure. So we'll see, but that's the latest on the Oilers. Lots of other things around the league. A variety of this is going to be trade and free agency. We may kind of jump back and forth. The Vancouver Canucks are trying to acquire Marco Rossi from Minnesota. They've had some pretty serious conversations with the Wild, and they've gotten as far as making an offer that is yet to be accepted. Of course, the deal hasn't happened, but reportedly, according to Vancouver media, they had the 15th overall pick in the 2025 draft on the table along with a prospect. We don't know who the prospect was, but at this point, Minnesota has rejected that. If they're going to trade Rossi, we know the Wild, they don't want to make their team worse. So the belief is they want another player back that they feel like they can, give them a different type of player, but like the useful player today. Or they can get some future-based compensation they can flip to another team to get that player that way. So that's probably why they haven't accepted this deal. If they're going to take a first-round pick and something for them, maybe they want a higher pick. I don't know. But the Canucks are trying to get Rossi. We'll see if those conversations continue and if the offer picks up, it gets any better, trying to acquire him. But they are in on him. Noah Dobson, according to Frank Saravalli, he's a pending restricted free agent with the Islanders. We know the Islanders have been a busy team here in the rumor mill for the past few days. Reportedly, he's looking for $11 million. Some wonder if he's asking for the moon, hoping to get traded. I don't really think that's the case. I think he's looking for his value. If you look at what other defensemen similar age and production are getting, it's not. Is it a little high? Maybe, but it's not that crazy, really. So, that's what he's looking for. Whether or not he gets it, or could it lead to a trade, we don't know, because there's been a lot of chatter about the Islanders and the Bruins, and to some degree the Flyers as well, around a couple of things. We know the Islanders had talks involving, we know that guys like Pajot was involved and Romanov were in the mix for different kind of trade scenarios that the Islanders and Bruins or Flyers were all discussing. There was some talk that the Islanders are trying to land another first rounder, either the Bruins or the Flyers first round pick, to try to get James Haggins. They want to try to snag Schaefer and Haggins while moving out some pieces off their roster. It might take a player like Dobson, for example, to get one of those. I don't know. I'm not sure how serious they are about wanting to make that happen. But the Islanders are definitely, they have a few things that are kind of in play here. Like I said, the Bruins and Flyers are the main teams they're talking to. Those are the main pieces that we've heard are involved. I can't confirm or deny that Dobson is in those conversations. I don't know that he is. But I know he's looking for a big contract, and they have to decide if they're going to pay him or if they're going to look to include him and maybe try to grab a couple of young prospects instead. So we'll see. Around the Islanders, they're definitely going to be an interesting team to watch here in the coming days. Sam Bennett, of course, the MVP for the playoffs, Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He's going to get paid handsomely no matter where he plays next year. I can say with confidence, and I can, without being a mind reader or having any inside intel, that he wants to be a Florida Panther. Pierre LeBrun of TSN is reporting that Bennett is not going to, if he is going to insist on getting like a $10 million deal, he's not going to get it in Florida. There's no way any of their free agents, whether it be him, Marchment, or Ekblad, are going to get paid more than Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart. It's just not going to happen. In order for them to have a chance for all three of those guys to stay, they have to take a little bit less. For example, they have, I think it was like $19 million in cap space, but they have a few other players that they need to sign or replace besides those big three. There's some chatter. Marchand to stay in Florida might even take 6. Bennett might take like 7. That gives you like $13 million. That still leaves $6 million on the table. I don't think they can do Ekblad too, personally, if they keep those two guys. But they're definitely not going to be overpayments for sure. If Bennett really wants to cash in, because out of all these guys, Bennett's the guy who's made the least amount of money. He hasn't had a huge contract yet. This is his chance to cash in. So it's going to boil down to what's more important to him. If he wants $10 million, I think he'll probably get it in free agency. But if he prefers to stay in Florida, it's probably going to be like 7.5 or something like smaller like that would be kind of my guess here. When it comes to, like we did talk briefly about John Gibson with the Anaheim Ducks, Dave Pagnotta is reporting that the Ducks and Pat Verbeek are willing to retain salary. So his contract's already not terrible to begin with, especially with the cap increases. But if they retain a couple $1 billion on it and knock it down to say $4 million or something, that could be a pretty attractive piece. So the Ducks are definitely willing to do what they can to make sure a Gibson trade is something that happens and makes it worth their while for other teams. JJ Peterka getting lots of attention, according to Frank Saravalli. A number of teams are showing different levels of interest, and the list of teams that are inquiring on Peterka is probably longer than this, but we can confirm with Frank's report that the Islanders, the Blackhawks, the Rangers, the Lightning, and the Canucks have all shown serious levels of interest and had engaged in dialogue to see what it might take to get a deal. We'll see. The belief is Peterka will be either before or at the draft, will be one of the top guys to watch get moved. The Penguins and Brian Rust. It seems like a trade involving Brian Rust is maybe more likely than I originally thought. Checking into his contract, one thing I didn't realize at first when the rumor first came around a few days ago that he could be on the block and he could be a player that's moved, that he has a no-move clause, but it's actually expiring at the end of June. So when he get into July 1st, he's no longer going to have any trade protection. And it seems like Kyle Dubas is pretty set on moving out as many veterans as possible. We've already heard that they're not going to offer to re-sign Malkin, so this is going to be his final year as a Penguin. You got to wonder, they're probably not going to be a playoff team, of course. At least I wouldn't suspect. Could he be a trade piece at the deadline? That's going to be a name to watch. We also know that other veterans on the Penguins have been in and out of the rumor mill here, whether it be Erik Karlsson, Rickard Rakell, Brian Rust. So it seems to me like I think they want to go into tank mode myself and really go for Gavin McKenna. That seems to be, if I had to get inside Kyle Dubas' brain with all the speculation and rumors around that team, that seems to be the strategy. So a Brian Rust trade is probably more likely than I may have originally thought a few days ago because of that protection expiring. Great scorer, good contract. Could be a good help to a lot of teams. Nikolai Ehlers out of Winnipeg. One team to watch for them, according to TSN's Darren Dreger, is the Hurricanes, which makes a lot of sense. One thing he said is if Ehlers leaves Winnipeg, one thing he's heard is that Ehlers kind of wants quiet. He doesn't want to go into, I think he's maybe had enough of the crazy Canadian market. Not to say that he's completely throwing in the towel here, but if he does leave, that could be part of it. So, expect him to go. I think winning is important, but also, maybe a lower scrutinized area. So Carolina does make a lot of sense with him. And there's still some rumblings, and I said this before when I did the Hurricanes offseason plan team video just not long ago. I get a funny feeling that they are having conversations about maybe trading Andrei Svechnikov. And there's been some rumblings out there that there are some conversations, and Chicago was one of the teams to watch. So can't confirm that. Still working on kind of nailing down more people to confirm that that's something that's maybe possible, but I honestly think they should be looking into it myself. That team needs to be able to score more big goals in the playoffs, and Svechnikov's been quiet lately. I don't really feel he's living up fully to that contract. I think there's some risk with him moving forward. So I'm not convinced for sure they're going to do it. They're only going to do it if they get the right deal, and if they can pick up another top six winger that they think can be even better for them, because they're not going to make themselves worse, that's for sure. So that's the only thing with the Chicago trade is, why would they do that? Who are they going to get from the Blackhawks? I don't really know there's anybody there, unless they did like a flip for another, get a big asset they like to flip to another team for another player or something. I don't know. We'll see. But just watch that name. Another thing to watch as well, Toronto Maple Leafs and RFA forward Matthew Knies. Of course, we fully expect at some point something will get worked out and he'll be a Leaf with a new contract. But right now, there's apparently a major gap in negotiations. Earlier indications tell us that there's a really big ask from the Knies camp on a contract. We don't know exactly what the number is. But as much as the Leafs would probably love to sign this guy for 7 or 8 years, the belief is he's going to take the Matthews approach and want to go shorter term, like 3 to 5 years, and maybe even basically walk himself right to free agency. Now, Matthews kind of did the same sort of thing. Doesn't mean for sure he's going to leave or anything like that, but it's more about maximizing your earnings. The sooner you can renew your contract, you give yourself a few years to keep improving, cap going up, cash in again. I mean, it makes sense from an athlete's earning potential standpoint, but it's going to be challenging. We know the Leafs are very likely losing Marner. We don't know where things stand with Tavares, except that they're still negotiating and that they're hoping to get something worked out for him to stay. But obviously the Knies contract will impact a lot of the other things they do. If he's looking for, say, $9 million and the team is only comfortable with like $7 million, that's a huge gap, and that could drag on. And I'm sure they'd rather have the Knies contract done sooner than later. A couple of things: one, to make sure that there's no chance of an offer sheet, and secondly, so that they know how much exactly other cap dollars they have to work on other aspects of the team. So right now there's a big gap that could always change, but the negotiations on that front are not off to a good start. So definitely worth monitoring for sure. The Seattle Kraken are another team to watch. Of course, I picked up Mason Marchment today, and it is believed that they do have Jared McCann available. Right now, a couple of teams that have been linked to him include the Canucks and the Senators, and the Rangers, I think, to some degree as well. So obviously he has history with Vancouver. To me, he would be the type of player that would make sense for the Sens after signing Zetterlund. They need to determine, they still have to figure out if they're signing Giroux. Negotiations continue on that front. And then by the time even if they do sign Giroux, they get to sign Maryland as their backup goalie. And they have a couple other little things they could probably add, whether it be trade or free agency. They could probably add one more player that could be in that $5 million or so range, which is what he makes. And if they choose to improve the forward group, obviously something would have to go out for him to come in as well, but it kind of makes sense. And same thing in Vancouver. Like they have some turnover there in the wings, with Besser likely departing in free agency, or at least we think so. I'm not sure Connor Garland's there long term. So they're going to need some wingers there, and maybe a reunion with his old club is something that makes sense. But yeah, there's a lot going on. It's going to get even crazier here in the coming days. Trades are picking up. We had one yesterday. We had one today. Signings are starting to pick up. We're just over a week away from the NHL draft. Keep in mind as well, the NHL buyout window opens 48 hours after the Stanley Cup was presented. So, of course, that opens up on Friday, which is tomorrow. So we're probably going to get our first batch of players going through buyouts. There's probably bound to be a few anyways, and then we'll likely that will be open for a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the off-season stuff, all the trades, all the free agent rumors, everything you need to know to keep up with all the NHL off-season news. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.